Hello and welcome to another faction difficulty rating for Total War Warhammer 2 on Mortal Empires. Today we'll be discussing Belegar Ironhammer, leading Clan Angrund. First up is race effects. There are Angrund ancestors who assist Belegar to reclaim Karragate Peaks. Not sure why that's a race effect and not a faction effect, but okay. Dwarves keep track of scores to settle and get negative effects from too many grudges. Dwarves can use tunnels for easier terrain movement. Now for faction effects, Clan Angrund gets plus 50% upkeep until Karragate Peaks is recaptured. Bonus leadership when sieging. They start with the 4 Angrund ancestor heroes, and there's a unique building chain at Karragate Peaks. Legendary Lord bonuses are Siege Attacker, Vanguard deployment for all units during underway battles, and that applies faction-wide, and bonus leadership when fighting Greenskins or Skaven. The rating system I use is pretty simple. 10 is really perfect, 5 is pretty standard, and 1 is really bad. Theoretically, high numbers are good for beginner players, and lower numbers are way more difficult. First, we're going to rate the start. In terms of infrastructure available, I'm going to give him a 5. He gets a tier 2 major settlement with a tier 1 recruitment building, and the other slot probably has to be money or growth. In terms of mobility, he's going to get a 4. Underway is available to speed up movement, but it still takes 2 turns to get anywhere because you can't attack in underway. In terms of starting units, he gets the 4 ghost heroes, which are 2 Thanes, 1 master engineer, and 1 runesmith. He gets dwarf warriors, rangers, and hammerers. Here he's going to get an 8. The ghosts are the best of the units, and stock on the rangers is handy, but the hammerers are actually a detriment because they're so expensive. I usually disband them. In terms of starting battles, I'm going to give it a 5. The theoretical starting battle is pretty standard and fairly easy, but because it's not right there, newer players might accidentally walk there, letting the enemy recruit more. Average his start ratings, and he gets a 5.5. It's a fairly average start, but the long-term issues with this campaign are where the problems begin. So now we'll rate the timing of advancement. In terms of province completion, he gets a 6. It's pretty easy to complete the province if that's your goal, but that brings me to my next point of availability of a sack city, and here he gets a 4. The sack city realistically is within your province, but not within range of retreating to replenish, and you don't really have time to stay in sack too long. Although as the dwarves, sacking is less valuable because what you really want from sacking is to get a great magic spell to do lots of blob damage, which just isn't possible as the dwarves. Sticking around to sack too much probably would just let your enemies build up in strength while you don't build nearly as much strength. In terms of timing of stack completion, I'm going to give him a 1. On higher difficulties, you can't even afford the full 20 units until you get another province completed or get 8 peaks back. Next is power of stack completion. Here I'm going to give a 3. The slow dwarf growth and lack of funds means a pretty lackluster stack when you can complete it, but base dwarven units aren't that bad. Average the advancement ratings out and he gets a 3.5. Advancement is a challenge with Belegar, so many choices of where to go, and they all have advantages and disadvantages. Do you kill Skarsnik immediately so your starting location is safe, or do you rush 8 peaks? I opt for the latter, stopping at Black Crag on the way, but it might depend on the way you play. Next, we'll rate the comfort zone. In terms of timing of enemy elimination, I'm gonna give him a 1. If you go straight for Skarsnik, it'll be harder to take on the Gits later. If you go for the Gits, Skarsnik will probably come for your starting area, and you're probably going to anger all the Greenskins and Skaven near 8 peaks, so you'll never be rid of enemies that surround you. In terms of timing of sustaining additional armies, I'm gonna give him a 1. It really depends on when you get 8 peaks. Good luck getting more armies before that, but even with 8 peaks, it can be hard to build up the second stack to full with units you want because of that growth. So now we'll talk about the timing of a finisher stack. Here, he's gonna get a 2. The dwarves really suffer here. Growth is so bad. You can get pretty good units, but you'll hit tier 4 and 5 way after your enemies. Next is timing of safety from neighbors. Here I'm going to give him a 3. You can't eliminate enemies easily, and so you need good defenses, but this is related to the lackluster growth. You really need to prioritize tier 3 minor settlements and get those walls up so that you can have a good defense and have your army elsewhere. Average the comfort zone ratings out and he gets a 1.8. The comfort zone problem isn't even specific to Belegar, but really an issue of the dwarves. They really need growth benefits to make sure that their they're safe from their neighbors. Average all of these ratings out, and Belegar's campaign gets a rating of 3.6. Overall, this campaign is a real challenge because the dwarves just can't keep up with enemies that completely surround them, and Belegar's increased costs do not help in this regard. And the thing about this campaign is it's even more difficult on harder difficulties, and not nearly as bad on easier ones because of the way cost scales. Some additional notes about Clan Angrund's campaign. In terms of confederation, I think it's a good idea to at least try to confederate Karak once you've solidified the area of Black Crag and Eight Peaks. In terms of rights and abilities, the Oath Gold crafting can be very valuable, and a trick to it is gaining the materials you need from trade. That way you don't necessarily need to expand to get resource buildings. Some special strategies for Clan Angrund. Belegar and the heroes are your power here, and they all get experience from raiding. So I like to raid across the continent as I make my way to take Black Crag, which is very valuable, to create a new base near Eight Peaks if I need to recruit more and to have a safe place to hide. My summary of Clan Angrund's campaign led by Belegar Ironhammer. This is a very interesting campaign, and the way it is now, I'd argue he has an easier start than the other dwarves. But I guess we'll see when I get to rating those. The real drawbacks of the campaign is growth on the dwarves. It's hard to keep up when you're fielding tier 2 units against tier 4 units. This is a DLC, the King and the Warlord for Game 1, and if you do have Game 1, I think it's a really great addition to Mortal Empires, and I really recommend anybody who wants to play in the old world gets this DLC. They're both great. But that's going to be it for this rating. Let me know what you think, and if you like this and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. You know how YouTube works. Goodbye!